Hello everyone, and thank you for joining UBS Trending. I'm Bianca Benedetti-Fang from the UBS Business Owner Client segment. With high-profile business sales and acquisitions consistently in the headlines, owners and entrepreneurs are increasingly considering their exit options. In fact, in our most recent UBS Investor Sentiment Report, 42% of business owners surveyed note that they plan to sell or pass on their businesses within the next 5 years. And as corporate M&A activity remains strong, what many exit-ready business owners may not be considering is what they'll do after the sale of their business. Joining us today to answer that very question is Barbara Roberts, an exited entrepreneur and the author of the UBS Flight Paths report, which showcases the journeys of 8 high-achieving entrepreneurs after the sale of their companies. Barbara, you are recognized as an expert in all stages of entrepreneurship and family business, and the author of the UBS Flight Paths report. Thank you for being here today. I am very excited to talk about all things entrepreneurship and exit.
Well, thank you, Bianca, for having me. As you know, I am passionate about our topic today.
Absolutely, absolutely. And as we dive into the Flight Paths report, we did highlight the journeys of 8 extremely accomplished entrepreneurs, and I think we were really intentional about focusing mainly on their journey after they sold those amazing companies. Of course, all parts of the entrepreneurial journey are exciting, so why was it really important for us to focus mainly on the exit and life after the business sale specifically?
Yeah. Well, it was a real joy to do this paper, Bianca. As I think you know, I've been writing about entrepreneurs for over 10 years, and have done many cases on startups, growth, sale, and the immediate experience after an exit. What we did in this paper is really go back and look at the entire life journey of an entrepreneur. We have to remember that baby boomers, people born in like the 40s and 50s in the United States, were really the first people to be given the educational, financial, legal ability, particularly women, to create their own wealth and build companies. And so one of the really exciting things about this paper is all of the cases are age 44 to 74. So the papers before that I've done have focused on the difficulty after the first sale in the first maybe 1 to 3, possibly 5 years. This was about the entire life journey, and it is meant to be inspirational. There are many things that I believe about entrepreneurs, and this proved all of them. Entrepreneurs are a state of being. We are obsessed by solving problems. We cannot stop doing it. And every one of these 8 people in this report would absolutely recognize now that building their company and selling was absolutely a minor chapter in their journey. Each of these people went out and done some incredible things.
I absolutely agree. And you know, I think you've dedicated so much of your career to helping and coaching entrepreneurs as they exit their business, writing numerous papers to share kind of the similar challenges of entrepreneurs. And in fact, in Flight Paths, we really focused on sharing a wide variety of stories of entrepreneurs, as you said, in a range of ages and genders and ethnicities to showcase all those different paths. But there certainly were some commonalities. And having learned so much from so many different founders, I would love to know, what do you think is at stake for business owners as they consider their options for exit?
Right. Certainly, all of us coming out of the COVID experience of those incredible 2 years are rethinking our lives. And so this idea of exit to anyone who owns a business, who is an entrepreneur, has to be something that people recognize. You have to, no matter what stage you're in, you should be thinking a little bit of, God forbid, what would happen if you got COVID, if you were on an incubator. Stuff happens. So when we think about exit, I think the first thing we have to think about is that stuff happens, and it's not always that you're in the driver's seat to choose. And the whole point of thinking about an exit is to put yourself in a driver's seat. I always like to talk and remind entrepreneurs that you have actually 10 options for what can happen to your company. So to quickly run through them, I'll glance down at my notes so I don't forget any. You can IPO, you could sell to a financial buyer, sell to a strategic buyer, transfer to a family member, sell to employees, sell to management, sell to a partner, bring in someone to run it, liquidate, or bankrupt. And if you think of it, each of those options really takes planning virtually right from the beginning of a startup. If you want to have your child eventually take over your company, you should be bringing them in when they're 5 years old into the company. If you want to sell to a strategic buyer, you should make sure that you are very well known in your industry, that you have great relationships with people who would possibly acquire you. Financial buyer, you better answer those calls for every private equity person who knocks on your door to learn about you. So one of the key things that particularly now, everyone should have a will, everyone should have a financial power of attorney, and everyone should have a medical proxy at the minimum when we talk about exit planning.
That absolutely makes sense. I mean, entrepreneurship is such a roller coaster, right? And I will say, when I read the Flight Paths report, I was definitely struck that all of the entrepreneurs had very emotional reactions when they exited their business. And certainly, our research shows that they're not alone in this reaction. Many business owners have at least some form of regret after an exit. And so to mitigate some of that regret, what are some of the things that you've seen that have led to the more successful transitions?
Yeah. I wouldn't use the word regret. I would use more that it's disorientation and it's sadness and it's mourning. And I think sometimes entrepreneurs don't realize the emotional attachment they had to their company. I think all of us, and I think COVID again taught everyone on this planet some of what it's like to be an entrepreneur that sells a company. Work brings three things. It brings the community of people that you hang out with. It brings your purpose for getting out of bed every morning, and it gives you structure for your time. I'm sure anyone who's listening to this, no matter what, understands that during COVID, when everyone was locked down, all of us had to think about that and went through a morning. But if you think about an entrepreneur, typically, all of those things are in the extreme. The only people that an entrepreneur knows typically are the people that affect his business. Only purpose is getting out of bed, making his business grow, her business grow, and it's a 24/7 fulfillment of time. One of my thoughts, though, is that COVID also put entrepreneurs at home and in this kind of state. So, in informal conversations that I'm now having with entrepreneurs, I think this dislocation and disorientation will be less in the future because, in actual fact, many entrepreneurs have very much reconnected with family, had to live with it, and it's. I think they're thinking about purpose. They already have gone through kind of some of the things that you have to think about if you lose your office. So I actually think that the disorientation if someone sells a company, COVID was training for it. I think it's interesting as we come to see how much that experience is affecting all of our lives.
Yeah, that's a fantastic point. And actually, when we began working on the Flight Paths report, it was prior to COVID-19. And then in our latest report, we touched upon how many of the entrepreneurs were challenged during the pandemic. And so as we are moving forward into this new chapter, I think we're seeing from our investor sentiment report that 78% of owners surveyed are really optimistic in their confidence and outlook for their companies over the next 12 months. But in terms of transition, how are you seeing the work of entrepreneurship and business exit really changing now? And do you have any advice for business owners that are thinking about going through an exit in the near future?
Yeah, well, I've talked about the three things you have to think about, which is if you're thinking if you're planning an exit. Again, I cannot stress enough that many times exits happen because things happen. I mean, whether divorce, death, illness, we know that. So we're talking about. I think the main point is to always think that something can happen. So if you're in that mode, then I think it is important to take some time to really look at all your circles of community, all your circles of meaning and purpose, and really how you spend your time. I personally am finding anyone that I'm speaking to now that has shifted, that beings now are much more focused on balance, purpose, bigger kind of meaning. So I think that's a universal thing. One thing, though, that I think is also very important that we haven't talked about, another issue or challenge of selling a company is what I call becoming an immigrant to the land of wealth. I think we still have to recognize that most wealth is self-made. There's a lot of research on that. And if you look at that, most people who become entrepreneurs and very successful, and I see this also in our white paper, did not grow up rich. Many times grew up in a very dysfunctional family. In fact, there's some quotes that if you grow up in a dysfunctional family, it totally prepares you for entrepreneurship because you're used to chaos and focus. But the key thing here is becoming a person of wealth and learning how to be a wealth steward is another kind of identity crisis. And so some of the planning, if you're thinking that you are going to sell a company at some point, is really to learn some of the basics of money management, start taking some courses on asset allocation, hedge fund, all this foreign language. You have to start thinking about wills, foundations, because once you have a tremendous amount of money, thinking about your money for your future. You also have to think about your family. Having wealth or selling a company is very disorienting on the family. It's a whole new identity for them. You have the issues of potentially raising your children with much more wealth than you were raised yourself, and how do you do that successfully? And then the fourth big challenge of selling a company and becoming an extremely wealthy person is you are overwhelmed by choice, which is another thing that's a sort of behind the scenes of this disorientation. If you have tons of money and extreme talent, your choices of what to do with your life are absolutely endless, and trying to get focus and really knowing yourself is all part of preparing for an exit.
I couldn't agree more. I think that we certainly see a lot of entrepreneurs that are challenged with that. And we are very much focused on helping people to really focus a lot more on impact, purpose, and legacy. So thank you so much for bringing that up. As we kind of wrap up, I would love to know, even for entrepreneurs who may not necessarily be thinking about exit today, when should they start thinking about their exit strategy, and what should they be addressing?
Okay, so as I've talked about already, it's definitely be prepared at all times and have, again, those basics done, the will, the financial power of attorney, medical proxy, and thinking about this purpose and time and whatever. But I also really would strongly recommend reading our Flight Paths paper. Just for a second, would like to talk about the 8 stories in there, because these are truly inspirational. One message that I hope that our Flight Paths paper has helped to put out to the world is that perhaps as a very successful entrepreneur, you actually should have an attitude of having a responsibility to be leaving your business at some time and taking those skills into another place. If we look at the people in this white paper, we have Ron Gonen, who has spent his entire life on improving the environment and recycling. We have Medina and Greg, both extraordinary Black entrepreneurs who certainly, because of what has happened in the last couple of years, have totally devoted their time to wealth equity, building up our education systems. We have 2 extraordinary women entrepreneurs in this paper, Kay and Candace, who are revolutionary what they did for women. Kay has started now a boot camp to help women in technology prepare to accelerate their growth in sales. Candace has left New York and is doing extraordinary things in her local community of Aspen. And then we have Gary Mandel and Steve Blank. Steve Blank became the father of entrepreneurship at Stanford, Columbia. What we teach is based on all of his philosophy on Lean Launchpad and iCorp. And then Gary Mandel is probably one of the most inspirational stories in our white paper, in this very sad fact that after his son committed suicide, he actually walked out of running his hotel empire, put other people in charge, and started an extraordinary not-for-profit called Shatterproof. So my key hope of this video is two things: to make sure everyone knows that exit planning, succession planning, and estate planning are different things. Never too early to start it. And second of all, do hope you read this paper to be really inspired to maybe think very strategically of possibly selling your business in less than the 5 years, Bianca, that's in your survey, because certainly coming out of COVID, it's an incredible opportunity. Everything has been disrupted. Entrepreneurs love disruption. This is a time for extraordinary innovation. Nobody has the answers. There are 50 million problems. So hopefully this flight pass will actually encourage some sales. So yes, take some money, but more, bring that time and experience into some of the other incredible problems that need that.
Absolutely. I was so inspired. So many diverse and fantastic stories from the UBS Flight Paths report. Barbara, thank you again for being with us. As a reminder, Barbara is the author of the UBS Flight Paths report, focused on how high-achieving entrepreneurs sold businesses worth millions and then had to ask themselves, what's next? You can access the report along with video interviews highlighting lessons, advice, and musings from many of our featured entrepreneurs at ubs.com/flightpaths. And to learn more about how UBS financial advisors are helping business owners proceed with passion as they build, grow, and monetize their companies, visit ubs.com/business-services or reach out to your financial advisor today. Thank you so much for joining us in the studio. For more information and access to UBS content, visit ubs.com/views. Make sure to follow UBS on social media, including Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and check out past UBS Trending episodes on demand. And as always, if you have questions about your portfolio, please speak with a financial advisor. Until next time, I'm Bianca Benedetti Fang. Have a great day, and remember to keep your eyes on what's trending.